On this date, Google Analytics is going to be no more. Are you ready for that? Stay tuned to know more. Hi, this is Nikhil and welcome to Weekly Update with My Growth Club. And as we are aware, last week Google made it official that by July 2023, Google will be deprecating Universal Analytics and will be replacing it with GA4. So by July 2023, Universal Analytics property will stop collecting data. I'll repeat that, will stop collecting data. And this is the time to move to GA4. And as a precursor to that, what I'm going to be doing is I'll be answering some of your questions about Google Analytics 4 every weekend. This is the first part of that Q&A session, and I have chosen some of the questions which are asked by subscribers to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or to my mail. So if you have any questions, please comment on this post and I'll address them next weekend. Let's get started. But before we get to questions, let's take a quick recap of how we got here. This all started in October 2020 when GA4 was launched. And by that time, it became default property when you are creating a new property in Google Analytics. Although you can still create a Universal Analytics property if you want to. I don't know why you would want to, but if there is some crazy person who wants to do it, he or she can definitely do it. But you will get that option only in advanced settings while creating the property. By default, you will only create GA4 property. So this is where we are. Now let's get to Q&As. So the first question is from Neha and she is asking where can she find bounce rate in Google Analytics 4? Well, you can't. There is no matrix called bounce rate with GA4. As you can see, I'm on Explorer screen in Google Analytics 4, which is equivalent of custom reporting in Universal Analytics. So let's quickly try and look for bounce rate in the list of matrix. Here we go, nothing. But there is something equivalent of bounce rate or no bounce visits practically. It's called engaged sessions. Engaged session, the definition of engaged session is any session which has had more than 10 seconds of time on your app or website. And that 10 seconds is configurable. You can make it 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or whatever that you wish or your data suggests as an engaged session for your user. So this can be used as a proxy for non-bounce session, and everything else is basically a bounce or a non-engaged session. As you can see here, I'll just drag this into values. Here we go. By city, we have engaged sessions. Out of 11,610 from not set city, 8,294 are engaged sessions. So roughly 70-75% is a non-bounce traffic and rest of it is bounce traffic. Hope that answers your question. Second question is a little complicated question about streams, views, and filters. The question is about tracking subdomains under different views as some people did in Universal Analytics, although I never followed that practice, but some people did that every subdomain had a different view in Universal Analytics. Can you do that in GA4? You can definitely do that. You can add a web stream which is specifically meant for specific subdomain. But as you can see on your screen, Google doesn't recommend that. What I would suggest is having all data from that domain, including all subdomains, into a single stream and then segregate that data at reporting level rather than filtering it out at stream level. I don't think streams and views are equivalent of each other in Universal Analytics and GA4. They are two extremely different concepts, and I wouldn't substitute streams for views in GA4. I hope that answers your question. Next question is about session timeouts, and you can find this and customize this under stream settings for each stream. By default, the definition of session timeout remains same, 30 minutes of inactivity between two events, which was the same for Universal Analytics, remains same for Google Analytics 4 as well. And you can change it here if you wish to. The only change that has happened is app. In app, whenever app is pushed into background, the session timeout happens and new session starts as soon as app is pulled back onto foreground. But by and large, the session timeout definitions have been same for Google Analytics 4 and Universal Analytics as well. The next question is about attribution modeling, and this has been subject of lot of discussions lately in GA4. Although the base attribution modeling for GA4 remains the same, which is last non-direct attribution, and data-driven attribution is a choice that you can have. As you can see on your screen, the first column denotes last click model and the second column denotes the data-driven attribution model. You can choose to have either of them, or you can choose to compare them and find out which suits you better. Google Analytics hasn't changed the attribution model or method for that matter from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4. There have been some changes in terms of privacy and user access control and user data access, but that really hasn't changed the attribution to a great extent. So I wouldn't really worry about attribution modeling in Google Analytics 4 being different from Universal Analytics. I hope that makes sense. But on the other hand, there has been an addition to this, which is really interesting. As you can see at the top, if you click on reporting time, you have two options here: interaction time and conversion time. These are two different attribution types that you can use for any of the attribution model. But what do those types mean is a subject for a different video altogether. If you are interested, please put a comment about this video and I'll try to make it as soon as possible. Next question is about custom dimensions by Shanky. And essentially custom dimensions haven't changed a lot in Google Analytics 4 and Universal Analytics. The only change is that dimension scope. Custom dimension scope is now only at event level and user level. There are no session level dimensions or there are no product level dimensions as they were in Universal Analytics. So you need to stick to either event level dimension or a user level dimension, and you can pass these dimensions as part of any event as a key value pair. So nothing much has changed there. Two type of scopes have gone out, but I don't think many people were using those scopes anyway. And considering that Google Analytics 4 is now moving towards event-based model, session level scopes didn't really make a lot of sense either. Next question is a really interesting question from Vinayak, where he is asking, how do you map your older Universal Analytics events to Google Analytics 4 events? This is super interesting. If you want to continue your Universal Analytics events into Google Analytics 4 to maintain the parity and continuity in reporting, all you have to do is just turn on collect Universal Analytics events under your data stream settings, and all your older Universal Analytics events, which are action, category and label, will be automatically captured in Google Analytics 4 as well, even if you are using older Universal Analytics code. And for these events, key value pairs, keys will be event category, event action and event label, and values will be whatever values you are passing into these keys. I hope that answers your question. Hope all of you enjoyed this Q&A sessions, and if you have any questions about Google Analytics 4, please keep them coming in and I'll try to answer each and every one of them by every weekend. Have a great week ahead. This is Nikhil signing off.